there is a moment many people experience but almost never admit out loud. A moment that hides between conversations, in the hush before you answer a message. Or in that strange quiet you feel when the world hasn't even spoken yet, but somehow feels too loud. It's the realization that distance feels safer than closeness. Not because you genuinely hate people, not because you're angry at humanity, but because being around others feels heavier than it should. It drains you, bends your thoughts, and sends you into a silent calculation of who you need to be, what you need to hide, and how much of yourself you can show without losing something in return. What most people call hating people is rarely hatred. It's a layered psychological response shaped by experience, by sensitivity, and by the quiet exhaustion of constant emotional negotiation. Some individuals don't avoid people because they dislike them. They avoid people because of who they become around them. They feel forced into roles, pressured to adjust their tone, soften their words, bury their emotions, and manage expectations that never seem to end. Every interaction becomes a small performance, and eventually the performance becomes tiring enough that solitude feels like the only space where they can breathe naturally. To understand this mindset, you have to go deeper than labels like introvert or antisocial. Many people who say they dislike people are actually some of the most emotionally perceptive minds you'll ever encounter. They notice everything: the tension in someone's shoulders, the tiny change in someone's voice, an unspoken disappointment, a subtle shift in energy. Their brain doesn't just register people, it analyzes them, absorbs them, and reacts to them with a kind of emotional sensitivity that can be overwhelming. It's not the presence of people that drains them, it's the emotional noise that comes with them. Psychologists call this emotional overstimulation, a heightened sensitivity, not a flaw. People who experience this often find themselves withdrawing, not because they want to be alone forever, but because they need space to stabilize their inner world. Too much outside input shakes their equilibrium, so distance becomes self-protection, not rejection. For others, the explanation lies in their history, not necessarily in dramatic betrayals or painful breakups, but in subtle, repeated lessons that people aren't always safe. Maybe they grew up in environments where honesty was punished. Maybe they learned that their feelings were too big or too inconvenient. Maybe they were surrounded by contradictions: people who smiled but judged, people who claimed to care but disappeared when it mattered. After enough emotional contradictions, they begin to seek safety in solitude, choosing distance over vulnerability. Because distance never betrays. There's also the weight of societal expectation. The pressure to always be sociable, pleasant, talkative, available. For some people, this expectation feels unnatural. They don't thrive on small talk or group energy. They crave depth, meaning, and sincerity. They crave environments where silence isn't awkward, where they don't have to pretend, where their thoughts aren't too intense or too slow or too honest. And because those spaces are rare, solitude becomes their refuge. But here's the twist. People who say they hate people often crave connection more deeply than anyone. Not surface-level connection, but connection where they don't have to perform. They want relationships where their quietness is understood, where their pauses aren't misinterpreted, where they can exist without adjusting themselves every second. They want the kind of closeness that feels like exhaling after holding your breath too long. This creates a quiet paradox. They push people away to protect their energy, yet they hope someone will stay long enough to understand why. They appear distant, yet their inner world is vibrant, thoughtful, and deeply emotional. They may seem detached, yet they care intensely. They don't hate people, they hate the emotional cost of navigating them. And the truth is, they aren't waiting for perfection. They're waiting for resonance. Someone whose presence feels peaceful instead of loud. Someone who doesn't demand, doesn't exhaust, doesn't confuse. Someone who feels like home instead of pressure. Because people like this don't actually want to live behind emotional walls forever. They just want someone who knocks gently. If you've ever felt this way, if solitude feels safer, if people confuse you, if connection feels like work, then this video is for you. Let me know in the comments. Do you relate to this psychology? And what kind of connection do you feel safe in? If you found this exploration valuable, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next deep dive into the human mind.